Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, Shawn Francis. I am Brian Altunian. There are over 3 million people, 4% of our population, affected by epilepsy. And I think that number is really just the reported number. I have a feeling it's much higher than that. Today, our special guest is another dad, probably a familiar face to many of you. Mr. Greg Grunberg is going to be talking about his organization. So here we are, ready for another phenomenal episode. This one's going to blow your mind too, because the connections between everybody here is actually incredible. So another episode of Just Two Dads. It almost sounds right. It almost sounds official, doesn't it?
Sounds good.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads. Again, I'm Brian Altunian, along with Shawn Francis. We want to thank everybody for joining us on Facebook Live. And if you're not catching us live, but you're catching us on our YouTube channel at We Are Just Two Dads, hopefully you will comment and subscribe, share with your friends. Today's episode is going to be poignant. There's a lot of stuff in the world around epilepsy and how people are impacted by epilepsy. If you're catching us on any of the podcast outlets, welcome. Please, again, share. Feel free to comment. Let us know if there's other subjects you'd like us to cover. For those down in the U.S. Virgin Islands listening to us on WSTX AM radio, welcome. Would love to hear from you. And we keep threatening and promising we're going to come down there and do a show live one of these days. But, today's going to be a fun, and it's going to be I know this hour is going to fly by. So before we get to our amazing guest, throw it out to Shawn Francis. Shawn, how you feeling today, bud?
I'm great, and I'm going to give my gratitude for a shorter amount of time than I usually do because I want to jump right into the show here today. As Brian mentioned, our guest is a guy that, may have a familiar face to many of you. I have to stop and look at his work because when I think about his work, especially as an actor, first thing that comes to mind for me, I was first introduced to your work by the TV show Heroes. My wife and our kids, we never missed that show. We used to watch it every week.
Awesome.
But the other thing that then comes to mind, of course, is what I think is the coolest association, but of course, is Star Wars, where you were, X-Wing the pilot, but then you've also been on A Star is Born. You were in the Paterno film,
Yep.
Castle Rock, Lost, Felicity, which goes back and predates Heroes.
That was my first introduction.
There you go,
Felicity.
Brian.
I love it.
Brian, you were our audience. We were going after you, the young female collegiate TV viewer. I'm sorry. No,
right.
Yeah. But our guest today is none other than Mr. Greg Grunberg. Greg, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love what you guys do. I jumped at the chance thank you for asking me to come on the show.
Sure.
Because this is near and dear to my heart. We're all in a club that no one wants to be a member of. And yet, you make the best of it. And not only that, you become a better person for it. Everyone around you, you're meeting the most extraordinary people. So I feel like I'm in great company. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we've got the biggest challenge today to try and scoop everything into an hour. And what we generally do is begin, people that do what we do, we don't choose it. And because it's what we have to do as good people, being parents to children with special needs or any kind of diagnosis, our hero is a hero, and every hero has an origin from where the superpowers come. So let's start with the beginning, because how you deal with a diagnosis and everything has everything to do with, who you are, how you were raised, where you're from, all that kind of stuff. So let's start with that and go down the highway a little bit, get into, because I think between that and your acting career, that also impacts for probably not good and bad, but pro and con, challenge and otherwise, as to how you deal with that. So let's start from the very beginning and go from there.
Yeah. Well, I was, born and raised in Los Angeles, West LA. My dad was in the clothing business, schmata business, as we called it, Jerry Grunberg. He was very entrepreneurial, still, he's 90 years old this year, rides a recumbent bike for an hour every day. I mean, he talk about heroes. He's my hero. I love him so much. My mom, just the great mom. I mean, I had a really great middle-class upbringing. And, you learn, I guess, thinking about it, business wise. My dad took chances and was always betting on himself with new companies, new ideas. And, you have to enjoy the ride, right? I look at what I do as an actor, and there are massive highs. I feel so fortunate to have had and continue to have the career that I have. And you just have to enjoy the ride. You have to enjoy the ups and downs. The roller coaster doesn't always go downhill. It's a lot of climbing, a lot of uphill, a lot of challenges. And it's scary at times, and it's exhilarating at times. And that's kind of not my upbringing, but I learned from my dad that, you just have to kind of keep an even keel. Enjoy those times, but don't get too bummed about the things, and don't get too high on the successes and stuff. My two boys, by the way, are collegiate baseball players, and baseball is exactly that. You hit a home run, just trot around, flip the bat.
Like
maybe
you've been there before.
Mhm.
Yeah, you've been there before. Don't celebrate, because the next at bat, dude, that guy's he's throwing gas, and he's gonna get it by you, and there's nothing.
Look, the things that connect us, that keep adding up, really trips me up, because I'm a baseball fan in October, right? So I'll be the first to admit that, right? Primarily. Yeah. But that's becoming less and less true. Some on my own, some of it because of the guy on the middle of the screen. Because when you talk about baseball, like terminology and all the things that, for years I didn't know. So Brian's a guy I ask, because Brian coaches Little League baseball and is a huge baseball fan. But go ahead.
Well, my son's playing for Hamilton High now he's on the JV team. He's catching for the JV team. So
nice. Hammy High. My mom went to Hammy.
No way. That's awesome.
See?
Yes.
We're on the same path, man.
Dude, come on. We're family now. Yes. So about the baseball. It's like both my boys playing baseball, and just like any other challenge, it's interesting, and you can just kind of parallel all of it. It's like you think, oh, I'm the man, and then all of a sudden you go out of Little League and you're in high school, and you're like, ooh, these are the men.
Right.
Challenges just keep coming, and you just have to rise to them, and you have to get better, and you hope that you keep going. And but growing up, I played sports. I always wanted to act. I acted in like the school plays in elementary school and junior high, and then never really thought about it as a career. But I grew up with some people in this town that were filmmakers from a very early age. One of them, my best friend since I was 5, was J.J. Abrams, who is one of our best filmmakers around. And the other guy is Matt Reeves. He
sure is.
As the Batman. Mm-hmm. And, these guys are absolute brilliant filmmakers, brilliant people. And the more importantly is they're just really, really good friends. JJ is like my brother. We've, he's been there ever since I was 5, and he's just the absolute best. And so growing up with that, being, starring in all of these little Super 8 movies when I was 9, 10, 11, 12, you kind of get the bug, and you're like, oh, look, everyone likes what I'm doing. I'm a silly little kid. And so I always had that in the back of my mind, but I never thought of it as a career. But as JJ and I lived together after college. We didn't go to college together. What's interesting is we didn't go to junior high school. We went to elementary school together at Roscommere Road, did not go to junior high, did not go to high school together, stayed best of friends.
Wow.
And then after college, reconnected, shared an apartment together. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I just couldn't help but gravitate towards, okay, you know what, maybe I'll give this a shot. JJ wasn't doing anything. He was writing like crazy, hoping to break through. His father was in the business. Again, my dad's making jeans and leotards, so it's not like I had anything. I did have my brother as an actor, Brad Grunberg. He's really funny. Just recently on Curb Your Enthusiasm, if you watch that show, as the roofer, like he's hilarious. But I had Brad as someone to look up to, because he went to University of Arizona. I went to San Diego State. At U of A, they were shooting Revenge of the Nerds, and he was like, I want to be an actor. So he was one of these they call them the Plaid brothers in the movie. And so Brad, so he was doing it, and I was like, okay, maybe if my brother does this professionally, whatever, maybe I can. And that's how it all kind of started. And luckily I was at the right place at the right time, and did my homework and studied, and I obviously got a break in with Felicity. That was Matt and JJ's first foray TV.
I had an agent.
There,
I had one of the agents in my agency in our financial services text me last night looking forward to the show because he was telling me that he took an acting class with your brother.
Oh, that's so funny. I love that. Yeah, my brother is one of those actors that is just naturally talented. He's just naturally funny. And in life, you meet my brother, and you just want to hang out with him. He's just the biggest heart in the world. He's hilarious. So, but I took more of a dramatic, I was like following JJ. JJ's like, oh, you want to be, I said, you guys have got the show Felicity. I've got to create a character for myself. So I've always brought levity to everything. I was the comic relief a little bit on Felicity, and then they gave me some serious stuff, testicular cancer my character had, and all this great stuff. And I got married, and then ALIAS. I joke that Jen Garner would run into the room with a gun, I'd run in with a calzone. It was like I was like that comic relief, which was funny, or whatever. And then I left the nest, and then I did Lost. I was just a pilot in Lost. I got killed very quickly. Thanks, JJ. And then Heroes was my big break. That was like, that was like the biggest show in the world, and no one knew. I knew it was special, but I didn't realize about that. I was in the Hollow Man previously, so that was a big movie, but this was like ridiculous. Yeah. And to be honest, all I really care about is working with great people, having fun. I don't consider it a job. And what it has afforded me, getting back to what we're talking about today, is early in my career, I'd be invited to these events, charity events, Hollywood events, whatever, and there'd be a publicist from the network, let's say, or someone from the charity. Let's say it was a cancer, Stand Up to Cancer or something, and I'm on the carpet, and I'm about to face all these reporters, and I'm like, what is this cause again? Like, what are they doing tonight? What is their mission? What are they? Oh, and she'd fill me in, and that was it, like 30 seconds. So I never really had a charity that I was super passionate about. Epilepsy found us, right? So our oldest child, Jake, was born perfectly normal, no problem, and I love the word normal, by the way. I'm sure you guys both have that little cringe when you hear it. And then at 7, Jake started having these staring spells, absence seizures, and they lasted maybe 2, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, where you'd be talking to him and he'd just be, and then you go, Jake. And so I didn't know what that was. That wasn't a seizure. That's not what we think of as a seizure.
Right.
So Elizabeth and I, being the great parents that we are, we would reprimand him. We'd be like, Jake, pay attention, buddy. Mommy's talking to you. Or, she'd be like, Daddy just asked you a question, Jakey. What's going on? And what I think was his sort of trigger. We've been told time and time again by neurologists, his brain is 100% is absolutely beautiful. Oh my God, it's an amazing brain. Well, clearly it's not, because he's had thousands of seizures. But everybody has triggers. Everybody has things. There are thousands of types of seizures. A tic can be a seizure. A staring spell can be a seizure. An angry outburst can be a seizure. And then, of course, the tonic-clonic, or we call it, they used to be called a grand mal seizure. You fall on the ground. But when you look at someone's eyes when they're looking out a window, they catch things. So your pupils are going boop, 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 boop. And if you ever look at that, it's really interesting to see, because your eyes I can't even do it. You can't do it. That may have been something that brought on seizures, because it was happening in the car. We'd be riding in the car, and Jake would be looking out the window, and then I'd ask him a question. And then his teacher would say, yeah, he kind of zones out a little bit, which was not Jake. He was like just sharp, normal kid, Yeah. So at a 7-year checkup, the doctor said, any issues? And I said, yeah, he's doing, and the doctor, thank God, he knew what he was doing. He said, Jake, why don't you hyperventilate for me? And Jake's like, I don't know what that is. He says, breathe in, out, in, out, in, out. And then all of a sudden, Jake fell into this little seizure, and then popped out of it. And the doctor said, okay, I think that might be a seizure. I'm not sure. I'm not a neurologist, and that sent us what I call through the epilepsy car wash. And it's just like that. Okay, now we're gonna get to a neurologist. Then I realized quickly, because he was over medicated, it was to a toxic level on certain medicine. Jake is the 25% that doesn't respond, responds to a medication, and then there's a breakthrough. So then you need another med, then another med, and the doctor that we saw, thankfully, when we finally got to the specialist, you have to get to an epileptologist. I'm the red phone for everybody in Hollywood with seizures. And
and getting ready for this too, I was thinking, I'm so glad you said that. This is why I love what we do. And I'm so thankful for this platform, because my son has autism. Brian's daughter is not diagnosed with autism. So there's all these different things. So I am as much an outsider to an extent as would anybody else be when they think, oh, he has epilepsy. Oh, they have seizures. When I think epilepsy, I think of Bobby Jones, who played with Julius Erving for the 76ers and played with epilepsy. And I know that he played in spite of them. But all I think about is, I think about the seizures. So for great clarity and value here today, why don't you, and I think is greater value coming from you as a parent and a warrior on the front lines than would be just from a doctor. But why don't you define epilepsy from your perspective?
It's a great question. So epilepsy is defined by our community as 2 or more unexplained seizures. So if you have a baby and the baby has a high fever and they have a febrile seizure, that's not epilepsy, because you have one time, the baby got sick or the child got sick and it was too hot, whatever. If you, all of a sudden you're in class, your son or daughter is in class, or your husband is driving or whatever, and all of a sudden has a seizure, and they're not exhausted, they didn't have alcohol, they didn't have drugs, they weren't sleep deprived, there weren't lights flat. I mean, there wasn't something. Even lights can be a cause of, you have epilepsy, you have sensitivity to lights, but 2 or more unexplained seizures, that defines epilepsy. So a lot of the times, you'll see some famous person and they have what looks like a seizure and then never hear about it again, because we all have an incredibly high chance of having a seizure in our lives. There, it's our brain, man. What a seizure is. There are 2 points. There are 2 points in our brain, right? Electricity is passing between these two right now, and that's how I'm talking to you. A message tells me, look at Shawn, look at Brian. I'm talking to them, All of a sudden now this happens, and the electricity is shooting here, and this electricity is shooting there, and it's like, now my whole brain. Now it's that's what's happening. Nothing more. Wow. We're not possessed by the devil. It's not contagious. None of that bullshit. This is all so simple. It is the electrical action in the brain that is rapid firing too much. And then all of a sudden, these 2 points find each other again. So it's like, now the person.
That is so valuable. And we could have a whole nother show on the value of communication and how we learn and what we do with challenges. That alone right there could be a TED Talk. Because if I were to ask a doctor, there's a good chance I would have been like, okay, I still don't really know what it is.
Right. I mean, it is really that simple. And so it's an overfiring of the brain. So the medications that are prescribed are designed to slow down that overfiring, right?
Right.
Well, in turn, they will work on recall and they'll work on memory. And so a lot of the medication, unfortunately, but the alternative is seizures, a lot of the medication will make it harder for kids to learn, harder for them to concentrate, for them to, really focus or read more than one sentence, tying those sentences together. Learning disabilities come hand in hand with, if you, by the way, the first 7 years of a child's life, that's when the brain develops. This is, what we know so far. So if your child has seizures after the age of 7, it's a much better thing, because the brains are already fully developed. If they're as a baby, I tell these parents, I'm like, some people are like, well, she's only having, 7 seizures a month, or she's only having 1 seizure a month. I'm like, that's not acceptable.
Right.
Keep running. The three of us the three of us know how exhausting it is to have to explain our entire process and how this started, and to the next doctor that walks into the room, or a next nurse. So how did this start? I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, I can't go through this.
Right. Don't you have notes?
Yeah, but you never know. Now, okay, going back to when we first learned about this, one of the first things that I learned was that there's such a stigma attached. When you see a child who's autistic, if you don't have compassion, if you see a child who has a seizure, if you don't have compassion, it's like you don't know how to act. You don't know what to do. We all see it, and it's just the worst. And I don't blame people. it's ignorance. They just don't know.
Don't know.
So when you see someone have a seizure, most people back away. Most people, are afraid. They don't want to deal with it. I started talkaboutit.org, right? The main problem we have is that no one was talking about this. I kept hearing this. I was doing whatever I could for the epilepsy community, and I would hear from doctors and nurses and everyone, man, it's just no one's talking about this. There's no celebrity face. Henry Winkler did it great for a number of years. He was a help. He's now a very, very good friend of mine, but not through this, just through the business. But he was the face of it. Danny Glover, who has epilepsy, he was the face for a while. But just in little respect, I decided I'm going to really make a change here. There's, there's millions and millions and millions of people that are dealing with seizures and epilepsy, and we need to talk about it. So I've got a podcast called Talk About It. So many heroes, amazing people in our world. I'm going to have you guys on the podcast because I'm doing an episode soon about people that are on their soapbox and not only talking about it, they're screaming about it, they're yelling about it, they're laughing about it, they're hugging about it, they're talking about it. So,
and it's funny because we were talking about this beforehand, talking about heroes and people that have epilepsy. One of the heroes who few people know that he had epilepsy, which was Prince. If it were not for him, you and I wouldn't have even met. It's a whole nother story altogether.
We received the Epilepsy Foundation received a big donation, anonymous. It was like, that's weird. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. But what? And someone like Prince, I would imagine, these people that are that big, that are that successful and wealthy, they must get people asking them all the time. So if it's revealed that they give to this charity, then the other charity feels bad, and how come you're not doing it? You're not going to win. So you pick and choose and donate where you want. Well, I was invited through Kim Whitley, who's a really good friend of mine. We did a pilot together. She's one of the funniest people ever. Sherry Shepherd's best friend. And,
Yes.
So Kimmy and I did a pilot together, and she and I are like family. I love her. And she's like, there's this party after the NAACP awards. You should come. And I'm like, what? I've heard about these secret parties. And she goes, yeah, it's Prince is having a party. I'm like, what? Yes. So the one person I grab, of course, my best friend, I call JJ up and I go, JJ, you got to go. And Matt. And so we went. It was like we got there. It's a story for another show.
Right.
But it was
his parties and his stories are like that. Yes. Yeah.
The people at this party. Let me just say that there was a moment where Oprah's on the couch behind me. Jamie Foxx is serving drinks. I'm in this living room, and Prince is jamming, and all of a sudden I hear ding 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 ding. And I'm like, what? And I look over, Stevie Wonder is at this keyboard.
No way.
And then Herbie Hancock jumps on this keyboard. I was like, what? So I met all these people, and it was there that I met Sheila E., who's become, she's got Elevate Hope, the Hurt charity, and she's a close friend now. Morris Hayes, who's in the band and who's produced a bunch of Prince stuff, he's become a friend. But I didn't, and then I kept getting invited. Sheila was like, Prince really wants, and I like literally met the guy. He walked through the living room, and I was like, like, he's everything to me. Like, honestly, nobody better, man. They talk about this halftime show that we just saw. Yeah, whatever. I love those guys. Nothing even comes close to the halftime show that Prince was.
And he was just direct and normal in terms of having conversation. And I only know this from the 10 years that I spent in Minneapolis and being on a couple of the projects, spent time around him and knowing, Morris and Sheila. And that's where you and I met at one of Sheila's charity events. Yeah. And it wasn't until years after that I realized our special needs connection. So that's it.
So did you actually meet Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
because what I did is I was an extra in Sign of the Times, which was the concert film, and that's where I met Sheila because I had friends in the band. But then I was also the most time I spent around him was as an extra in Graffiti Bridge, which was the sequel to Purple Rain, which he directed. So
you have a bigger career than I do.
No, not quite.
I am telling you, those two credits. I wish I had. I'll trade out my credits for you. But for me, like all of a sudden, and Jack Coleman, who was on Heroes with me, very, very, very good friends with Sheila. they're like, Prince is playing this private club in Vegas, and after show, you should go to the after show, whatever. And I'm like, I keep getting invited and like included in these amazing nights and things. So, and then Sheila was like, no, Prince wants you to be there. And he never talked to me though. Like he would say hello. And then, hey, thanks for coming. I'm like, thank you so much. And he'd keep walking or whatever. One night in Vegas, like my wife and I are at the show, and then they said, stay in your seats. And then they go, okay, walk through the kitchen with us. We walk through the kitchen to this other small little room, and he plays and doesn't stop playing.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. And the sun comes up, and I got to be back in LA. My wife and I have to be back. And they're like, and I'm like, Sheila, I have to go. And she goes, oh, no, you can't leave yet. And I'm like, you got to say goodbye to Prince. I'm like, okay. So I waited for a break in the song. He went over to sit. This is hilarious. He went over to sit in a booth. It was like this back room in a restaurant. And I walked over to thank him. And I reached out my hand and I was like, hey, I just want to thank you so much. And I didn't realize I was leaning on this woman who was sitting there talking to him. I literally didn't even realize. And Prince's words to me, you're smushing her, man. So like you've had better conversations than I had. But I realized quickly after that, I was like, oh, because I didn't even know he had epilepsy. And then on Tavis Smiley's show, I think that's where he revealed.
He talked about it. Yeah. After a certain age, he had the seizures, and after a certain age, he talked about how they just kind of like went away, but there was always an acknowledgement. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've come across many people, Jeff Garland, that are touched by the epilepsy world, and celebrities. If you go to talkaboutit.org, you'll see every celebrity. I mean, I have really killed it. There's so many great celebrities on there that have helped me out, people that I've worked with over the years, friends of friends. They never cease to amaze. They never say no. We have so many people, great people.
Saw that when I looked at the site. Yeah. So where were you when you were looking at your son's diagnosis? Where were you in terms of your work at that point in time, and how did you, as a couple, deal with that? Because it's funny, I was talking with my daughter about that this morning when we were talking about the show. I was telling I don't know if you realize what happens is very often when a special needs diagnosis comes into play, when you have a marriage, if your foundation isn't strong to kind of begin with, either someone else or something, lack of money or too much money, comes between you. But then by the same token, so too can a diagnosis, depending on how that takes place. So how did you guys fare with that?
So that's a great question. So, and it a lot of times, most of the time, it splits people up as opposed to bringing them together.
Yes.
My rock, everything is Elizabeth, and she got her master's in special education. Okay, which is ironic.
Talk about preparation by the universe.
Amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, you think about it and you go, look, God gives you these challenges that you're not going to get these challenges unless you can face them, unless you can deal with them. I don't know if I believe in that 100%, because I think we all have the capacity to rise up and really do what we have to do. And by the way, I know you both hate this when someone says to you, oh man, how do you do it?
Or that's not as bad. What really gets me is my son, my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Are you? And I appreciate it, but it's kind of
it always comes from a good place. But like Downs, I got to tell you, Down syndrome. Whenever I meet someone with Downs or child with Downs, I'm like, I hate saying jealous, but there is such love with autism,
purity.
Yeah, for sure.
We should all feel that. We should all be touched by that. Jake has that. My son, Jake, Jake's working at a production company. He's, thank God his medicine's working. He's on great. We've gone through the ringer. He's had 2 brain surgeries. I'll talk about that.
Wow.
Yeah. But you keep pushing, and he's a big fan of Rocky, right? And Milo Ventimiglia was in Heroes with me, and then he was in Rocky with Stallone.
Right, he plays Rocky's Stallone's son, yeah.
Yeah, he played Stallone's son. There's a quote that and I'm going to butcher the quote, but we've all heard it, where he goes, it's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit, get back up, and keep on going.
Right.
And Jake, he's my hero. Like, I know that Elizabeth and I have instilled this in him, but he's fearless time and time again throughout school in situations where I would drop him off on the curb. I'd pull up, drop him off. I'd be like, hey, bye, buddy. Have a good day at school. This is elementary school, right? And I would pull around to the parking lot just to make sure. I'd just sit there for 5 minutes. And then I get my text, and it would be, and I'd go, and Jake's laying in a pool of blood because he split his chin open on the playground, and all the kids are, and the teachers, and they don't want to touch him because God forbid they break his neck. They don't know what to do. I'm like, what's going on? He's got road rash because he's been literally his face has been. It's just the stuff that we've gone through, that he's gone through. I shouldn't even say we, that he's gone through, and he's like, all right. I mean, what are you going to do? He's like, keep going.
How old is he now, Greg? How old is he now?
He's 26 this year.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
26. And dude,
that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, can we get him a date? Do you guys know anybody? I mean, that's the thing.
You know something? We actually do. We had well, I shouldn't say we do, but we had Matt and Nava Asner on, and that's what's Asner, and they have that's one of the things that they cover: social interaction and dating for young adults at the Ed Asner Family Center
here in Southern California.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta get a hold of Matt. I know Matt.
Yeah. Ask Matt about it. Yeah, they were on 2 weeks ago. I think
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt's gonna be pissed that I didn't go to the last poker tournament, but I will. I'm absolutely gonna reach out to him because that's one of the things is, it's just an interesting thing. Like epilepsy is interesting because it doesn't present. So you meet someone with epilepsy and you're like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, whoa. You know what I mean?
And you probably get the same byproduct that comes with autism, which is, oh, he doesn't look like he has it.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, like maybe in conversation, you'd be like, wow, he should have really known that. Like you register, that was an interesting comment. Like what? And then it's just, but all Jake wants, he's such a loving guy. He just wants to hang with somebody, take a girl to dinner, have a girlfriend, whatever. So it's tough with COVID and with everything. And he's working at a production company, but he's been working from home now for a long time. He's going back, but it's just it's brutal. And I've always thought maybe asthma and autism work well together. Maybe epilepsy and something, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be.
Do you do that too? Because I'm always like, it's so funny you say that today. I thought about it. I was thinking, because my wife and I have her daughters from her previous marriage. We adopted, it became legal guardians too, and then adopted her sister's 4 children. And Elijah's 15. He's my only biological child. And so I was thinking today, it's so weird you say that. Everything is connecting here today is kind of. Anyway, so I thought to myself, I was like, I don't know if he'll experience love. I don't know if he has real friendship. I don't know if he'll have any children. And then I felt like, what is that for me? I don't have any biological grandchildren. Who am I to make that about me? What about him? Does he want that? Does he know what that means?
I know, but that's the unknown. That's the future. That's the thing that keeps us up at night is independence. Is thinking like, what does and Jake, he can handle himself, but all of a sudden he'll forget to take his medication. And we're like, oh man. I mean, Jake doesn't take his medication, he'll have a seizure. His life can change overnight. So it's like, it's one of those things where you go, okay, we just want him to have all the normal things. Like, does Jake have to be on TV like his dad? No, none of that stuff. Simple things, and you really think about it as a parent, and all you want is the best for your kids. All you want, obviously, if there's a diagnosis, is that silver bullet thing. And then you have to go, wait a minute, this is going to be around for a while. This is going to be around forever. This is something we have to deal with. And it puts you in a different perspective. You celebrate the today. You really become very present, or at least you hope to. We all get wrapped up in things, and then we realize, oh wait, and it's just an interesting thing. And then I become very thankful at times. I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but that we're given such a precious outlook on life and family. Other people got, COVID especially hit so many people, and they're like, I lost my best friend. I realized how precious life is. Well, the three of us, we know every day how precious.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
Well, I will tell you this too, Greg, my daughter, who's 26 as well, who watches it and always participates. So some of the comments, if you're seeing the comments, Joe Quinones, that's my daughter.
Oh, cool.
She was diagnosed at 18 months old. We were told she wouldn't have a job. She wouldn't live on her own. She wouldn't graduate school. She wouldn't drive. She was going to need assisted living her whole life. That was our diagnosis at 18 months. And so I don't know why now I'm getting all emotional, but she's in upstate New York. She's married. She works for the Amsterdam school district as a teacher. Which she drives to every day. She has the most positive outlook on life. Awesome. She's just, she's brilliant. So, I
love it. Does she want to have an affair with my son?
If she were here and not married, we could have made that introduction.
But that's what talking about it does. Like what you just said. Now it's like, man, that dark tunnel.
Hope. That's why we need each other.
Yeah,
that's why we need each
other. That dark
other.
tunnel is now a bright light. It's like, okay, it's going to work out.
I'm sorry. I went to your site, Greg, to talk about it. And one of the things I noticed on there is, and I just saw cannabinoid. I didn't see the whole thing. So talk about what you guys are doing with cannabis. Because I had people ask me before, like, is your son on medication? He hasn't been for the majority of his life. And he had a prescription over the last maybe 2 years. Because just before the pandemic hit, Brian, I don't think we've actually talked about it on the show, but Brian is very aware. Just before the pandemic hit, he went his first summer without summer school, and all of a sudden, was keeping rock star hours because, as people know, boys with that are on the boys produce less melatonin than girls, and so on the autism spectrum, an erratic sleep pattern is par for the course, and so he was like going to bed at maybe 5 a.m. 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And in some cases, a full 24 hours is not. And when I say that, I don't mean like upset. In cases, quite happy. But, we had like luggage under our eyes, though, still aware that your biggest nightmares are somebody else's dreams.
Well,
but I've had people ask. Go ahead.
I'll talk to sleep for a second. Like epilepsy, you have to get your sleep and you got to get a nap in. That's just,
okay.
I mean, he has to, because sleep deprivation and if you're just exhausted, that leaves you more vulnerable,
more prone to a seizure.
And also, your body is like we'll have a flu in the house, right? So like one of my boys will get sick or whatever, and then we're just watching Jake like a hawk because his go-to is a seizure. So he may not even, he may not get the sniffles. He may not get a headache. He may not get the chills or a fever, but all of a sudden he's a seizure and you're like, what the hell's going on? And you go, oh, that's right. We have, a cold in the house. That's just his go-to for his body.
Wow.
Cannabinoids, I have to say. So, in the epilepsy world, man, people have had such success with CBD. It's amazing. It is transforming medicine.
See, we haven't tried it, so that's why I'm curious. Yeah.
But here's the thing. That's what you just hit on. Is like you go, oh, let's try it. Whatever. At the beginning, I was hearing all these people were like, oh, my buddy's got this thing. These gummy bears should get, and it's got CBD. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not going to give a brownie or a cookie or have my son smoke weed. It's not going to happen. There's no way. It's got to be medicine. It's got to be a medicine. And there is now an FDA approved medication out there called Epidiolex. And that is, and it's being used, they're doing research on a ton of different things to help a bunch of different people. And it's that company that I'm actually doing a series right now called The Caregiver. And if you look up Greg Grunberg, The Caregiver series, it is awesome. It's awesome. And Greenwich Biosciences, Jazz Pharmaceuticals, they're financing it. Or they're supporting it. It's so great. I'm actually interviewing caregivers because all of us, like we put stuff on the back burner that we may be passionate about because we don't have time for it. We have to be there for our families, whatever. But at the same time, like when they say on a plane, you got to put the mask on yourself before you help others. We have to stay healthy. We have to stay happy. And part of that is, getting that time to do whatever we love to do, finding a time, finding a groove. It's not going to happen for a while when you first get that diagnosis. Obviously, you're all consumed. But once you get stuff into a manageable pattern, it's really important. And so we found these, and it's in the epilepsy and rare epilepsies world where I'm going around and I'm interviewing the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, whatever, their caregivers for patients. And it's a great way to learn about the patient. as an audience member, obviously I'm having a blast, so you're, as an audience, you're watching this sort of talk show kind of thing. We're getting into some heavy stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, one guy was this guy, John, the episodes that are out now, I found out he loves cars and I have a passion for cars. So I took him to this like total man cave car place in San Pedro. He was like, what is this? And we're sitting in amongst all these classic cars, having this heart to heart as two dads. And then,
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And there's episodes coming up. There's this beautiful family in Seattle, Leslie and her daughter, and she loved art. And I also paint, or I did years ago. I gave it up. And so we went to an art studio and did an art therapy session, and we're just painting and talking, and it's just so great. So I'm really proud of that. I hope everybody checks out the Caregiver series.
Where can it be found?
But going back to what you said, where we haven't tried it yet, like, you have to talk to your doctor. You've got to talk. Don't just start taking CBD drops or no way.
Yeah.
It has to be medicated. You have to know, and it interacts with other medications. So another medication that you might be on, it'll make that stronger or weaker or whatever. Like, the doctors know what they're doing. So don't take a chance.
Good. Yeah. And where can the Caregiver be found?
The Caregiver's on Facebook and YouTube. Definitely on YouTube.
Yeah. So Sean Hall just put in our chat, just put the YouTube address for.
Awesome.
There it goes.
Thank you,
and then,
great.
So that's beautiful. And we have a friend, Matt Failer, who has his own podcast. He's up in Oregon. He has a daughter with some medically complex issues, epilepsy being one of them. And so he talked a lot about CBD. That's somebody that you may want to chat with, be on his podcast as well, to continue to spread the word.
Yeah,
Matt's a great friend. We've shared a lot of resources together, and he actually had asked the question, "Hey, can you talk about your series, The Caregiver?" So that was perfect.
Oh,
perfect timing.
I love it.
Amazing. Yeah, it's very tuned in.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the what I get to do. This getting back to my career is like, when I'm on a talk show, the first 5 seconds is like, okay, so tell us about heroes. Let's show a clip. What else is going on? And it gives me the opportunity. I mean, this is special. This is like, we're family, right? But I'm talking about like when I'm on the Ellen Show or I'm on the Tonight Show or whatever, I get to really make an impact. And the shock, like, I was on Ellen and they were like, so your son has hundreds of seizures a day. And I'm like, what? He does? I'm like, what are you talking about? And that was their sort of headline. Ellen said that. The audience was like, oh. And I said, whoa, guys, you have to understand. Like, a little tick, that could be a seizure, or the head, or a big seizure, or whatever. So, being a dad of a child with epilepsy, you want to talk about it with as many people as you possibly can. You don't want to hold this back, because the baseball coach, right, Brian, if you knew that somebody on your team, little leaguer, had the potential to have a seizure, you'd know, okay, well, if he falls, he's not going to. The seizure, by the way, this is really important. The seizure is not, most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it's not going to do any damage. It's the fall.
Falling.
Right. It's that. Right. So if I do these in-services, I used to do them at school, when Jake was coming up, I talked to the class, I talked to the teachers, and a lot of people were like, I know. And I was at the bowling alley and I saw somebody have a seizure. I was in elementary school and the kid next to me, I know what it looks like. And I'm like, okay, but you never stick anything in anybody's mouth. That's a total myth. There's no chance you can choke on your tongue. Absolutely impossible.
That's treated like it's gospel.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. Tonic, clonic. Okay. This is what we don't say grand mal anymore, because grand mal literally translates to the big bad or the big evil. That's what it means. You don't want to say that. So you say tonic, clonic seizure. A tonic, clonic seizure is tonic, which is stiff, and clonic, which is shaking, right? So stiff, one of the strongest muscles we have is our tongue. The tongue is not going to go back. The tongue is going to go like that. So there's no way you're going to choke on your own tongue. You can't. It's impossible. But if you have any food or any liquid or anything, so that what you want to do, if somebody has a seizure, you want to catch them before they fall, obviously. If someone starts having a seizure, also, they're not going to just go boom. They start doing this. They're out of it. And then, so hold them, hug them, Kids in school used to do these things, free hugs. I'm like, this is what seizures are. If you see someone having a seizure, give them a hug, take them down to the ground slowly. Don't yell at them, because they can't hear you. They're these 2 points are not communicating. So take them down to the ground, put them on their side, put one leg over the other so they won't roll back on their back. Because if they urinate out, or if they just can't control any of their bodily functions or any of their muscles. So don't freak out. Put something soft under their head if their head's going like this, and just stay with them and know that the seizure is going to ride itself out. And when they come out of it, you imagine if you came out of that, you don't want people standing over you going, Shawn. Yeah. I mean, that's scary. Right? So,
all right, I will stop doing that, Shawn.
Yes,
I will stop doing that to you.
Don't do that.
See, I told you not to do that, Brian.
Exactly. So just let them come out of their seizure, and when they come out, just be there for them and say, "Hey, are you all right? You okay?
Yeah.
All right, everything's fine. We're here." And that way, it doesn't have to be a traumatic. It's scary. I'm not going to say it's not scary. It is. And if the seizure lasts more than 2-3 minutes, call the paramedics. That's fine. Yeah. But you don't always have to call the paramedics. Like, there are moments when we get a call. We used to get a call from school. Like, I'd see the school district on my phone, and I'd be like, "Oh,
yeah, I know that."
You know that feeling. So I get. And I answer the phone, and they go, "Do you want us to call the paramedics?" And I say, "Is Jake okay?" "Yeah, he hit his head, but he's okay." "How hard did he hit his head?" "No, not hard at all." I'm like, "Okay, nope, I'm on my way." And then, one of the two brain surgeries, by the way, I'll speak to that real quick. Jake, I was speaking on behalf of the epilepsy community, and I would tell Jake's story and his types of seizures. And these epileptologists these brain surgeons and epileptologists, one stopped me and said, "Hey, I work in Chicago at Rush Medical Center. We have incredible machines that pick up seizures. I don't think it doesn't seem like his seizures are consistent with being generalized, meaning the entire brain is seizing." He said, "I think it's starting somewhere."
Interesting.
And if we can find out where that is, which we might be able to remove just that part that's not doing anything but starting seizures. And he might be, we never know, might be a surgery candidate. It's always the last thing you think about. You're never going to, go to surgery first, but
sure.
Right.
So we were like, okay. So on the way home from DC with the big national walk on the mall in DC, I took Jake to Chicago, started there. They were overnight EEG and the whole thing. And then we ended up determining that he is a possible candidate. He had an F1 resection of his brain, which is like the size of your fingernail, really small. Yeah. And his seizures were reduced by like 80%.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, it sounds amazing. And yes, it's amazing. It didn't cure him. Okay. Because for 5 years, his brain had been learning how to seize. So other parts of his brain were, okay, this is what we do. Sure. And also, we wouldn't have started with that. So I look at it and I go, why didn't we do surgery right away? Well, it's like, you wouldn't, because that's your last straw. You try other things. Sure. And then the second time was in high school. Jake was doing everything wrong. He was standing on stairs, hanging out with his buddies. Like, first of all, if you have epilepsy, don't hang out on stairs. No. Like, what? You're not going to hang out in the deep end of a pool. Don't avoid stuff like that. Anyway, he was standing there and he had a seizure. So here's the stairs. He fell back more than just level. He fell back, hit the back of his head here, and had a brain bleed. Which is what happened to Bob Saget, recently, and right. Where there's brain. But we went to the doctor. Doctor was like, he seems fine, and he went home, and then the blood was building up in the brain, and we almost lost Jake. I mean, it was an emergency surgery to relieve that blood in the
pressure. Yeah.
Wow. So those were the two. One we chose, and then this one was an emergency surgery. But incredible heroes. Talk about heroes. Incredible doctors and nurses, and this was many, many years ago. But, Jake was recently Jake loves to act as well. I'll put him in stuff. He was in a movie called Max Reload and the Nether Blasters. He played a young version of me in that. And I produced that movie. And then I was just on 911 Lone Star with Rob Lowe and Gina Torres. And the role was kind of written for me. It was a dad whose son had a seizure, believe it or not. And this is a true story. And his son is in a medically induced coma, and they start doing a terminal wean. They start turning the machines off because they're like, there's nothing more we can do.
Oh, my gosh.
Dad, in real life, this dad took a gun out and held the ICU hostage and said, "You're not touching these machines. My son's going to come back." And his son came back.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So the creator of the show called me and he was like, "Hey, I really want you to play this role." And I said, "Okay." And I'd love to. It sounds fantastic. And then a couple of days later, I called and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute. Who's playing the son in the bed in the coma?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"Well, we have a guy," but I was like, No. Jake would love to do it. And he said, "Oh, I didn't want to ask. I didn't ask." And so Jake ended up playing my son.
Wow.
That's
in there.
fantastic.
Dude, come here. Say hello.
Oh
Jake
my God,
just
that's
walked in.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey.
Jake,
Hey guys,
Jake,
Well,
how's it
man.
going?
physical therapy.
how you doing?
Hi, how
You're
are
a chip
you?
off the old block.
Exactly.
exactly.
All right,
Seriously.
Get out of here.
Yes.
That
is awesome.
Jake. So by the way, now he just embraces it. Like that's the thing, and I think he gets it from me, and absolutely from Elizabeth. Is we talk about this stuff. Jake's a second degree Taekwondo. He's black belt, and he teaches, and and he talks about it in class. He talks about it with people so that everybody around him, coaches, teachers, friends, everybody, if they see him have a seizure, they'll know what to do. Because this is what I talk about on the podcast and what I talk about on the caregiver and stuff. Everybody's got something. They may not want to talk about it.
Yeah.
The three of us know, man. When you go to a function and there's other parents and they're talking about how perfect their kids are, wow, dude, that's trouble.
It drives you crazy. And you know what?
But those people are in trouble. Like that,
Right.
They are. They have no
stuff
idea
going on, and they're not talking about it.
Right. And you know what's funny? Because Brian's going to talk about empathy as we look to wind down. I think I hate to say this. This is no disrespect to anybody that's been on previously, but I'm more disappointed about the fact that we've got almost no time left now than I've ever been on any other episode.
Oh, thank you.
But understand.
You hear that, Matt Asner? Huh?
Greg said that, not me.
That's funny.
Empathy is important. Yes, people need to have empathy with us and our children. I posted something on social media about someone that I know that made a post, about there was a child with Down syndrome. This person posts memes and they're really funny. And they posted one that wasn't funny. It was a child with Down syndrome. Obviously, you can tell by the eyes, and they had on a firefighter outfit and it said fire retardant. And usually I would question something like that in a private message, but because people's responses were kind of timid, I chose to very tactfully let that person know that it wasn't funny at that point. But I was trying to give some kind of grace and empathy, because just like we need empathy and our children need empathy, we need to have empathy, or at least try to, with people and give the chance that they just don't know. Because my consideration for how somebody might fall with epilepsy only came about when my wife and I were at a special needs event, and there was a girl there that had a dog. And I was trying to figure out, why does she have a service dog? She can see. Isn't that ignorant? I'm like, why does she? And she is explaining to me that the dog lets her know when the seizure is coming and gets her in a comfortable place. And I was just like blown away from it. I had never even seen that or heard of that.
Yeah.
Isn't that
But
wild?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how they can.
I use the dog to, so I can blame someone for my farts. It's the same thing. When I first learned that there were epilepsy dogs, it blew me. First of all, I'm such a dog lover. We've always had dogs. They are so beautiful in calming, because it's all about, you want to keep calm and everything. Meditation can stop seizures from coming. So a dog, you can imagine just the comfort of and the love of a dog. But to know that the dog can sense an increase in your heart rate, something's going on. And
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, just to let you know, it starts barking when you're driving and you're like, what's going on? And then you pull over, put it in park, put your seat back a little bit, and then you have a seizure and it saves your life.
Right.
I mean, this is incredible.
Amazing.
Incredible.
It is. We're at that time, Brian.
Well, you wouldn't even ask the question, Shawn.
No. Yeah, I should just jump right into it. At this point in the show, Greg, we will generally ask the following question. Our ability to change the world is tied greatly to our ability or willingness to change ourselves. So if you can, think of an example. Give us one example of a belief or thought that you really believe strongly, but no longer believe to be true.
Okay. Okay. I think we all grow up, and we were, the hero theme is one that we've had in this hour. We all grow up wanting and believing that our parents are our heroes, and they're perfect. And you see the imperfections, and not, there's some that are glaringly obvious, but majority of that grow up the way we did, you say, okay, I love my parents, and then you get to a point where you realize they're not perfect. My parents are not perfect, and you need to, you just need to, as a parent, know that you're not perfect and that it's okay. You're going to make mistakes along the way. There is no, you get a baby, you have a baby, and you come home, and that's it. There's nobody that tells you what to do and how to do it. And you take it from there. And then you add an issue like epilepsy or autism or anything health related, and you have to find your way. You're not perfect. I've realized that. And what I've come to know is it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk about this with other people. It's no reflection on you if you've made mistakes and you're learning. I learned things from you guys today. I learn every time I talk to people, and there's nothing wrong. And by the way, in your relationship, there's nothing wrong with trusting your partner and trusting that they make mistakes, you make mistakes. Just keep pushing forward. There's a movie it's a ridiculous movie called The Cannonball Run, but if you remember that movie, the Italian guy gets in his car and he grabs the mirror and he breaks it off and he throws it. And this passenger goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "What is behind me is not in front of me." And as a parent of a child with special needs, you kind of have to live your life that way, man. You just don't look back. Look forward, be the best you can possibly be, take care of yourself, and it's a battle. It's a battle. It's like anything else, but just don't be so hard on yourself. I learned I'm not perfect, but I learned my parents aren't perfect, when I was growing up, but man, they did so many things that were right. I have to share one quick thing. I know we're running short on time, but
it's okay.
We're not just parents to one child. We're parents to, we have multiple kids. We have 3 boys. And when Ben, our middle guy, who's now, playing baseball at LMU and whatever, when he was 7, I think, and Jake was almost 11 or 10, I remember Ben saying to me, he's like, "I wish I had epilepsy." And I was like, whoa, what? And so Elizabeth and I, yes. You have to make time. Now, then I thought, wait, what's going on? It really put me into a spin. And I thought, my parents, I have a younger sister and older brother. My parents made time, and they called it special time when we were growing up. And they would be like, "Okay, tonight's Greg, tonight's your night. Bye Tiffany, bye Brad." And they would stay home, and I'd get to go out with my parents. You know where I wanted to go? McDonald's. I wanted to go bowling, like the cheapest. It wasn't anything.
It's the time.
Yeah, special time. Well, you have a child with special needs. You're at the hospital. You're at the doctor's office. You're spending extra time. You don't think about it, but it's special time. It's individual time. So not only do you have to then make special time for your other kids, you also have to make special time for Jake, who he didn't want to be at the hospital with me. So you got to make special time for that. And then you got to make special time for you and your partner, and for yourself. So, as my parents were the greatest parents, and they still are. But I learned from them that they're not perfect. I learned these little things, and then I try to do the best I possibly can. The 3 of us are the best dads on the planet. Without
a doubt.
Okay. But that's what I learned, that I always thought was, I thought, man, my parents are, and then they're not, and neither am I. And so it's okay.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Perfect.
Well, as we wrap up, I'll encourage everybody to go check out talkaboutit.org and not just watch it and take it in, but actually process it and realize that anything that you're going through, the more we talk about it, the more people are informed, the more there is empathy. I've talked about empathy a lot on this. You never know what somebody else is going through. You never know what the experience is. So have some empathy for the people around you. And if we can all look at the world through, the lenses of love, at the end of the day, the world is a better place. And nobody epitomizes that more than Greg. And, and your family, and God bless you for all the work that you're doing for
Thank
epilepsy and for
You too.
other special needs issues. And so glad that we had a chance to do this with you, Greg. Really, I've been a huge fan since I was that little girl watching Felicity back in the day, and I'm just honored to have had this hour with you. And on behalf of Jordan, my daughter, and the rest of my family, thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Throw it to Shawn to close us out. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Greg, for the time. And once we sign off, Greg, stick around for a hot second if you can. If I want to thank the women in my life. Yesterday was International Women's Day.
Yes.
My amazing mom, Jan, and my wife, Laura. Without them, I couldn't be who I am or even aspire to be. And everybody, just remember that everybody needs to know that they matter. They need to know that they're seen and that they're heard. And we have more things in common than we do otherwise. So thank you so much. And if you're watching us, if you're listening to us, wherever you might be, we love you.
Thank you, guys.